This is the old Winton Schoolhouse. Not a lot of people know that we have a one-room schoolhouse in the Cascade School District. It is for students that live more than 1 hour from another school. And it just goes to show you the diversity we have within our education service districts. Title I was designed to give federal funding to school districts and let them have local control over what they did with that money. The legislation was signed into law in 1965 by Lyndon Baines Johnson. It was part of his War on Poverty. It was implemented in order to give money to poorer areas. One thing they had to overcome was how to deal with segregation and money going to parochial schools. With money being assigned to individual students or following the students, that resulted in a lot of pullout. And as a response to that, we started to move to more school-wide programs. School-wide programs started out being funded if you had over 75% eligible, and now we're to 40% eligible, which gives us more options. One other thing that's interesting to think about is that only about half of the schools in the United States actually accept title funding. It's important to remember that when you talk about title, there are a lot of different title funds. Like Title I is basic ed, Title II is for professional development, Title III is for English language learners, Title X is for homeless. For this presentation, I'm mostly focusing on Title I. It's also important to remember that there are different parts of Title I. Part A is for basic ed, Part B is for reading, Part C is migrant, then there's neglected and delinquent, there's provisions for school reform, for advanced placement, and to manage or look at dropout rates. We're standing on the same property, but this is Beaver Valley Elementary. This is the building we built to replace Winton School. It is considered remote and necessary. And I found out by digging around that remote and necessary has nothing to do with title funding. Why would I say that? Because LAP is not title. A lot of times you see title/LAP and they are not the same thing. Title is federal funding and LAP is state funding. There's basic, which is easy to get and implement. There's a concentration grant, which has to do with large populations. There's targeted, which has this crazy complicated weighting system to figure out who gets what. And then there's education finance incentive. That has to do with like if states are in hardship, so that's not necessarily what we're talking about today. Right here on the table, this is an example of how you would qualify for a basic grant. So here is the 4 classes of 25 representing 100. If you multiply that 3 times, you're looking at what maybe an elementary school would look like at Osborne. You have to have at least 10 to qualify for a basic grant, and you have to have at least 2%. In most cases, what you end up doing is pulling out, because it's a small number out at a time, and you'd pull them out and they'd go with your token title para. Your other option, of course, would be to take all these guys and shove them into one room, and then take your dinosaur teacher and have them be title funded, and that way they're getting the chance to work with these guys. In most cases, that's not what we have. We actually have regular ed everywhere and maybe a title para. You don't have enough to run a school-wide. So this is a targeted model. That would mean that the token para who comes in or pulls kids out can only be with these guys. Many schools in our valley, this is representing 40% at poverty. You need to be 40 or above to qualify for school-wide services, we don't have enough students to qualify for some of the other grants. We basically still get a basic grant. And in the last few years, we chose to go school-wide. You don't have to go to a school-wide model. I think that's another thing to think about. There are some benefits to it. Let's talk about the benefits right here. This is going to be a tough targeted model in a way, because now you're going to take your para, and maybe if you're lucky enough, you have enough kids to get another, but even in our building, we have 2.5 paras for our 300 plus kids that are funded title. So here's a title para, and let's say that they're assigned to assist third grade all morning. They're gonna even if they go in the room, on some kind of a targeted model, they need to target these guys only. And if they go over there next door 45 minutes later, they have those guys. Imagine if you tried to do pull-out. You'd be pulling out almost a classroom size at a time. You're certainly not going to take all these guys and all these guys and put them in one room, and then take these guys and put them in one room and mix your funding to have a title teacher. Now you're tracking, which is one of the concerns of the early implementations. If we go school-wide, now this person can work with anybody. So they can come in and they can work with students, and it doesn't matter if you can have whoever you need help in reading or in math or in whatever meet with this person. And a lot of places call it walk to read, or some kind of intervention where the teachers actually, you move kids based on need throughout the day, and you'll see that a lot more in your school-wide model. The key thing for going school-wide is you need a plan. You have to have a comprehensive plan that includes the plan for your professional development, plan for what you are doing to improve student learning. Last year we started third grade with 15 more students than our typical around 100. So this is what we would have been looking at. We would have to either put all these guys in here, which would push the class size up to like 28, 29, or we have to figure out a way to get a teacher. So we ended up paying for an additional teacher with some title funds, because we have that option as a school-wide to use funds however we want. That doesn't, you don't have to stuff all the title kids into her. Now, you end up with 5 classrooms, and you ended up using a little bit of title money to make that fair. We have about 2.5 paras, 2 all day, so I'll just stick with 2 all day, and then we have 2 general ed. Interestingly enough, our 2 regular ed guys can't do morning recess because they actually have classes. We get them to do a little bit of our lunchtime and a little bit of our afternoon recess, but without title paras, like if we were to fund a reading teacher, an additional reading teacher, you're looking at a 2-to-1 trade, or perhaps a 2.5, sometimes even 3-to-1 trade, para to teacher salary. So when you decide to go that route as part of a school-wide plan, let's say, you're going to lose the opportunity for you're going to have teachers agree to supervise. I went to the regional title directors meeting last year, and it was at the ESD on the 4th floor. And I don't know if you have ever been here, but here's the view from there. And this was me. There's honestly just too much information, more than you would ever use, more than you would need to know as a principal. You can find everything you'd want to know to get into the details by going to OSPI or going to the Department of Education online. But if you don't know something, ask. We have a regional director who spends tons of time on it. She sent me 50 plus emails this year reminding me about different title things. Know who that person is, get in touch with them. They're going to help you more than you could ever imagine. Think about the basics. Think about your students. Know them. What services are they entitled to? Are they getting them? Know your teachers. What are they doing? Who do they work with? I think we don't spend enough time connecting with families. Surveys really aren't enough. We need to be thinking about other ways to connect with families that we serve. Finally, document. For example, I did a rank ordered list this year to show what all the kids are we served and how they did. I don't even know if I had to do that, because it looks like I don't according to some of the things I'm reading, but we did it anyway. Doesn't hurt if we pay attention to the budget even when it's not finalized, because if you're going to see a reduction in funds, I think you want to pay attention to how it's going to affect people you care about. Like if it's going to change someone's working situation, I'd give them a heads up even if you weren't sure what was going to happen. Know your building plan, know when you need to review it, know if you're meeting the goals, and then you'll also run into people like this. I coach softball and cross country. I teach one period of PE. I'm the athletic director, and I'm also the title director at my building. That's a reality that this director of title can get tacked on to different jobs. So it is something you could be in charge of even if you don't start out in charge of it as a vice principal, for example. And within Title I, there are different sections. A is for basic education, 2 is for reading, 3 for migrant programs, 4 for delinquent and neglected, 5, but did I switch to numbers? Also, within Title I, there are different parts. Part A is for basic funding. Part B, section. And this is called a, shoot. This is the old Winton Schoolhouse. I can't remember what I was saying. Just to help you consider the